Billie Holiday, or more famously known by her nickname Lady Day, given to her by her trusted compatriot Lester Young, is one of the most important jazz musicians in the history of the genre. Her singing style was very unique, and while she had a turbulent childhood riddled with abuse and abandonment, she had an amazing career, one that even saw her performing at a sold-out show at Carnegie Hall, which is impressive seeing as she was older at the time and her voice was not all that it used to be. In 1958, for the African American magazine titled Ebony, Frank Sinatra is quoted as saying, "In terms of my singing, I have sometimes been asked how it all began, and it's usually been a little hard for me to set the story down in any continuous narrative. From the days of my childhood, I've been listening to sounds and singers, both colored and white, and absorbing a little bit here and a little bit there. Countless musicians of talent have helped, but it is Billie Holiday, whom I first heard in 52nd Street clubs in the early 1930s, who was and still remains the single greatest influence on me. It has been a warm and wonderful influence, and I am very proud to acknowledge it. Lady Day is unquestionably the most important influence on American popular singing in the last 20 years. With a few exceptions, every major pop singer in the US during her generation has been touched in some way by her genius." With such a glowing review, it is extremely difficult to diminish Billie's influence in jazz and jazz history as a whole. Who else can say they helped inspire Frank Sinatra to sing? The timbre of Billie's voice resembles that of an instrument in that it is very edgy and bright, especially if you compare her voice to that of an opera or classical singer. Opera singers and singers in the classical genre usually have a very broad and open tone quality. They are trained to lift their soft palates, carry little to no tension in their mouths, sing in the back of the throat, to project loudly, and to not sing through your nose. Billie does the opposite. She sings very much through her nose and is not opening her soft palate as much as in most of her recordings. She also sings quietly and uses very subtle dynamics. These anatomical proportions in her mouth and throat give her voice that brassy, sharp, yet sweet quality, and this can be shown in most of her recordings, including the one playing in the background titled "Them There Eyes."
Look out, little brown eyes, if you're wise. Sparkle, bubble, get you in a whole lot of trouble. I'm looking for the boy with the wistful eyes. I fell in love with them there eyes.
Now, her singing this way makes perfect sense, since she took heavy inspiration from jazz musicians and instrumentalists such as Ethel Waters, Bessie Smith, and especially Louis Armstrong. In Scott DeVoe and Gary Giddens' book Jazz, Essential Listening 2nd edition, shown here, the authors state that her Armstrong influence is one of her most important. On page 147 they say, "From him she learned to swing, paraphrase and embellish a melody, and impart a blues feeling to everything." When you look at Louis Armstrong and his phrasing, this makes complete sense. Armstrong's melodies were lyrical, not too complex, and extremely expressive, all of which can also be said about Holiday. If you've ever listened to either Holiday or Armstrong, it is almost impossible to not recognize them in their recordings thereafter, because their voices and musical styles are so unique. From Louis' trumpet playing to Billie's singing, they are both second to none, and are most likely instantly recognizable by any jazz fan. This is only a brief overview of Billie and her legacy as a musician, singer, and performer, and it is impossible to do the artist justice with such little time. However, I hope this discussion of her life and career helped to shed a light on her effects in the jazz canon, from her inspiring Sinatra and a plethora of other singers, to seeing how her singing style is different than that of a classical singer's, and how Armstrong unintentionally shaped her style of musicianship. Thank you for watching, and let's hope Lady Day continues to inspire musicians from all over the world with her artistry and beautiful toned colors.
Keep on smiling, baby, and I hope